Namaste. Jesus is the most universally loved figure in human history. Hindus loved him, Muslims respect him, Buddhists honor him, and yogis quote him. Here's a strange thing though. The people who claim to follow him most closely follow him very often are the ones least like him. Jesus healed the sick. Jesus loved the outcast. Jesus sat with sinners. He crossed every boundary. But the institution built in his name has spent 2,000 years drawing boundaries. So the question worth asking is, who was Jesus actually? I'm not talking about the Jesus of the church. I'm not talking about the doctrine, the Jesus of the doctrine. I'm talking about the actual man. See, everything that we know about what Jesus did and said points that Jesus was a Kriya Yogi. Everything he did, every miracle, every teaching, every word makes complete sense through the Kriya Yoga lens. In this video, I want to demystify two things: who Jesus actually was and what Kriya Yoga actually is. Because most people who have heard of Kriya Yoga think that it's a breathing technique. And most people who have heard of Jesus think of him as the Son of God who came to forgive their sins. Both of those understandings are missing something that runs through your spine right now as you're watching this. Jesus said something that confused people for 2,000 years. And what Jesus said, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. This has nothing to do with money. Actually, the meaning is in Chandogya Upanishad. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what he meant. To understand this properly, I need to explain Kriya Yoga practice and the connection with spine. The yogic secret, the Christian doctrine your church, your pastor will not teach you. Let me start by explaining the evolution of our spine. Think about the moment you were conceived. Two cells becoming one, and that one cell starting to divide. And in that very early stage, even before your heart was beating, before your eyes were forming, even before your brain was fully taking shape, your body built one thing first, one axis, one channel, running from the base of what you would become all the way up to the crown, your spine. The very first structure your body built was a vertical line. I don't think that's an accident. And I think that's the whole teaching. Now, hear me out. Life on this planet has been here for a very long time. Billions of years. And for most of that time, most living things moved horizontally. Fish, snakes, lizards, amphibians, side to side, parallel to the earth, spine flat. Then slowly, something started reaching upwards. Mammals began to lift their head. Primates began to climb. And then, somewhere around 4 million years ago, an animal stood all the way up. 2 feet, spine facing vertical, face to the sky. Now, from a pure survival standpoint, this was a terrible idea. Standing upright meant back pain, difficult childbirth. We ran slower than most predators because of that. So why did evolution pay that price? Because something more important than survival was happening. When you stand upright, the spine becomes a vertical channel. The freed hands can build tools, can make fire. But something even deeper was happening in the whole body. The axis of consciousness also became vertical. Earth below, sun above. And the spine, the connecting thread between the two. Humans aren't the only bipedal species, but we're the only ones capable of maintaining a completely straight, upright posture. And you want to know something? Every human embryo reenacts that entire journey in the womb. In the first weeks, the embryo looks like a fish. Then it looks like an amphibian, and then a primate, and then upright. 4 billion years of evolution compressed into 9 months. The whole time, the spine being built first. And there's a message there. Let me explain this. The ancient teachers of India had a name for your spine. They called it Miru Danda. Miru, as in Mount Meru. The the sacred mountain that in the Vedic cosmology is the axis of the entire universe, the axis around which all the worlds revolved, Meru. And Danda, the staff, the pillar. Your spine is the Mount Meru of your body. And I'm sure you've heard the story of Samudra Manthan, the churning of the cosmic ocean. Okay, the story goes like this. The gods and the demons came together. They came together to churn the ocean of existence and extract the nectar of immortality. They called it Amrita. And what did they use as a churning stick? They used Mount Meru. And what was the rope wrapped around it to churn? They used Vasuki, the great serpent. Now, I think that story is in a mythological format, but that story is a map of your own spine. The churning stick is Merudanda, your spine. The serpent wrapped around it is Kundalini, the dormant energy sitting at the base of your spine. And the nectar of immortality they were trying to extract. That's Moksha. The whole story has a deep meaning. Your spine. Your spine is not just bone and tissue. Running through the center of it is something the rishis called Sushumna Nadi, a subtle channel, invisible physically, but more real, according to the tradition. And inside Sushumna Nadi, nested like a tube within a tube within a tube, there are three more channels. Vajra Nadi, Chitrini Nadi, and the very innermost core is called Brahma Nadi. The ancient texts describe Chitrini Nadi, that innermost thread inside the spine, as lustrous, with the luster of the Pranava, which is Om, primordial sound of the universe. Brilliant, with 5 colors, fine as a spider's thread. 5 colors. Now, the Chandogya Upanishad tells us even more. It says, the subtle substance flowing through your nerve channel is of different colors. Brownish yellow, white, blue, yellow, and red. And these colors are the colors of the sun's internal structure, our sun. The sun's rays are responsible for the colors of the juices that flow in your nerve channel, in your Sushumna nadi. The 5 colors in the Chitrini nadis are solar colors. What is in your spine at the very innermost core is literally liquid sunlight. And then the Upanishad says, just as a highway runs between 2 villages, the rays of the sun travel between 2 worlds. They spread out from the sun and enter into the nadis. From the nadis, they spread back and enter back into the sun again. The sun rays enter your nadis. During deep, dreamless sleep, when all the senses have gone quiet, the person enters into the subtle channels. And in that state, no sin can touch him, because in that moment, he's surrounded by the rays of the sun. Every night when you sleep, solar light enters your spine and protects you. That means you're not separate from the sun. This is what Swami Vishuddhananda taught as Surya Vignan, the solar science. After 12 years of learning at a secret ashram, mystical ashram called Shambhala, a mystical place deep in the Himalayas, every object in creation is composed of solar rays. 360 rays forms all matter. The liquid sunlight in your spine is the physics of the subtle body. Now, the Chandogya Upanishad says something about subtle channels in our bodies. It's very important. It says there are 101 channels flowing from the heart. 101 channels. Of these 101 channels, one goes upward toward the crown of the head. That one is Sushumna Nadi. Going through that one, a person can attain immortality or moksha or liberation. See, the other 100 channels are scattered outward in all directions. 100 directions pull your energy outward toward the world, toward desire, toward distraction, and toward fear. But there's one direction, just one nadi that leads inward and upward toward liberation. Just one channel, one path. And when you leave this body at death, Upanishad says you travel upward through the solar rays. The door opens. The door opens, but only if that channel was open when you were alive. Now, remember what Jesus said. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. The eye of the needle is Sushumna Nadi. That one channel, fine as thin as a spider's thread, subtle as the innermost nadis at the core of human spine. And what is the camel? The camel is everything that you're carrying. Excuse me. The ego, the attachment, the identity you built around what you own, around what you have achieved, what you're afraid to lose. See, the camel cannot pass through the eye of a needle because it's carrying a lot. The eye of the needle only admits one thing: pure consciousness. A rich man, and Jesus didn't mean wealthy man. He meant anyone heavily loaded with the weight of his identity cannot pass through that channel. Because the channel itself is that precise. And the eye of the needle is Sushumna. Excuse me. Now, let me share the practice of Kriya Yoga, because this is what Jesus practiced. And this is why we say Jesus was a Kriya Yogi. Kriya Yoga is the science of putting down the weight. The science of thinning what you carry until you can pass through the eye of the needle. Patanjali opens the entire second chapter of Yoga Sutra, the chapter on the actual Kriya Yoga practice, with this saying: Tapa, svadhyaya, Ishvara, pranidhana, Kriya Yoga. Says Kriya Yoga is tapas, svadhyaya, and Ishvara pranidhana. And immediately in the next sutra, he tells you the purpose. The purpose, he says, is for the attainment of samadhi and the weakening of kleshas, for experiencing samadhi or moksha. And here's what I want you to understand about why Kriya Yoga is the fastest path. Every other path to moksha works on one dimension of the human being. Jnana Yoga works on the intellect. Bhakti Yoga works on the heart. Karma Yoga works through action. These are all real paths. All of them lead somewhere genuine. But Kriya Yoga works directly on the instrument, the spine, the Sushumna, the solar channel. It goes straight to the mechanism through which liberation happens. When you chant Om, you're not sending sound into the air. You are vibrating the innermost solar channel of your own spine. Ishvara pranidhana, the surrender. The Chandogya Upanishad records a great sage who says, I meditate on the sun as the supreme Atman. The sun is a symbol of the absolute for me, because the surrender is to the solar intelligence already running through your spine. The Surya Upanishads says it directly. All creatures are born of Surya, protected by Surya, dissolve in Surya. I am Surya himself. That is ultimate Ishvara pranidhana, surrender to what's already inside. Now let me tell you about the actual practice of Kriya Yoga, not the technique. I'm not qualified to give you the Kriya Yoga technique because that requires a guru. And I'll come to that. What I share is the principle, the core of Kriya Yoga practice. It's the movement of consciousness up and down the spine, deliberately, with complete awareness. Most human beings live their entire lives with their consciousness scattered, consciousness pulled outward through senses, pulled downward by fear and desire, sideways by the world, through the 100 channels that scatter in all directions. Kriya Yoga asks you to call it back, to gather the scattered consciousness and move it upward through the spine, through each of the energy channels, through each of the chakras, along the Sushumna nadi. What happens when you do this? At first, nothing dramatic, just a quality of attention that feels different from ordinary thinking. You'll experience more stillness. But over time, something begins to shift. The solar channel starts to carry more light. The weight begins to thin. If you're a person who used to react from fear, now you pause. The person who made decisions from anxiety, or from craving, or from what other people thought, starts to feel different. The relationship with time changes. A Kriya practitioner begins to feel the difference between a day when the channel is open and a day when it's blocked. He will know. And they feel it. They can feel Sushumna as a lived experience in their own body. They can literally feel the Sushumna. And slowly the person becomes less reactive and more luminous. That's the only word for it. Luminous. Because the solar channel is carrying more light. And people around you feel it. This is what the scriptures document across thousands of years about Kriya Yoga, the principle. A human being who consistently moves consciousness through the spine under proper guidance becomes something different. Elevated, more themselves, more still, more present. Free most of the time. And closer every single day to passing through that eye of the needle. Now let me come back to Jesus. I believe Jesus was a Kriya yogi. I say it because when you understand what Kriya Yoga actually is, everything Jesus did makes complete sense. And what did Jesus do? He healed the sick. He stilled the storm. He raised the dead. He said that the kingdom of God is within you. He said, I and the Father are one. And he also said, greater works than these shall you do. Yes, he said that. Whatever he can do, you can do as well. When Christians are programmed that Jesus died for their sins, it's the biggest fraud, because Jesus said it himself. Greater works than these shall you do. A person whose Sushumna is fully open, whose solar channel is carrying the full current of solar intelligence, operates from a completely different relationship with reality. The identification with the small self is gone. What remains is pure consciousness moving through a body. When Jesus healed, he wasn't performing a miracle from outside the law of nature. That is what Kriya Yoga prepares a person for. When he said, the kingdom of God is within you, he was pointing at the same thing the Chandogya Upanishads points at. The inner sun, the Sushumna, the one channel that leads upward. And when he said, I and the Father are one, he was speaking from Ishvara pranidhana, surrender. Not surrender toward God. Dissolution into God. When he said, greater works than these shall you do, he was saying that this science is available to everyone. The channel is in every human spine. The liquid sunlight is in every human being. The eye of the needle is open to anyone willing to put down the camel, willing to put down the weight. The tradition that transmitted this secret to Jesus may have different names, but the science is the same science. You know, the spine is the same spine. The channel is the same channel. And of course, the sun is the same sun. There is one truth, and it has many doors. Kriya Yoga is one of the most direct path. Now I need to tell something. I want you to really hear this. I'm a student of this science. I'm not a guru. I am not qualified to give Kriya Yoga initiations. And I say that because it really matters. You see, everything that I've shared with you today, the Kriya Yoga science, scriptures, understanding of the spine, this is knowledge, just knowledge. And knowledge is valuable. But Kriya Yoga itself is not something that you begin by watching a video. For thousands of years, this science was transmitted in one way only, from the realized guru, directly. From a realized guru to a prepared student in the form of initiation, transmission. Because the Sushumna cannot be opened by just technique alone. The solar channel in your spine is not activated by just good intention or just an intellectual understanding or even sincere effort. Believe me, I've tried. No. There's a transmission that passes from a guru to a student, where something moves that cannot be described in a book or a video. What I'm saying is that the lineage matters. The guru matters in Kriya Yoga, because what is being transmitted, it's not information. It is the capacity to open something in you that you cannot open it yourself. Think of it this way. You could study every book ever written about fire. You can understand the chemistry of fire. know everything about it. But without a spark, you have no fire. The Guru is the spark. I share what I share because I want you to understand what you're looking for before you find it. So that when you sit in front of someone who claims to offer this initiation, the Kriya Yoga initiation, you must know what is real and what isn't. So that you don't just settle for just technique, when what you need is transmission. This is a living science, and it requires a living teacher. Seek one with patience, with discernment, and with the understanding that finding the right guru is itself part of the practice. Your spine was the first thing built, before your heart, before your brain, before your hands. Evolution spent 4 billion years building the instrument that could hold a vertical axis. Every embryo reenacts that journey from fish to upright human in 9 months in the womb. Every night when you sleep, solar light enters your nadi. One channel in your body leads to immortality, the Sushumna, and 100 others scatter. The eye of the needle is real. It runs through your spine. That's what we learned today. And that's what Kriya Yoga is for. The fastest science a human being has ever developed. Especially to pass through the eye of the needle while still alive. Jesus knew this. Patanjali codified it. And the liquid sunlight in your spine is waiting to be made conscious. If you resonate with this, find the Guru, seek the initiation. Do not settle for less. Namaste.